What's up, everybody? Ian Walsh here, Hard Money Bankers. My face is blacked out for this one. Great. With my partner, Ryan Walsh, Hard Money Bankers.
You can see me.
There's Ryan. You can see Ryan. And the man of the hour, Karl Schnitzer. How are you, Karl?
Hey, guys. How's it going? Thanks for having me on.
Good. So,
rumor is Karl is a stud.
At least Jake. So says Jake. So, anyways, so wait, how do I get that off? Or is that going to be there the whole time? Oh, there we go. Okay, sorry. So we wanted to talk today about, everybody knows that the market is shifting right now, and we've been doing this show since it started shifting about 6 or 7 weeks ago, or whatever it was, when the interest rates started to move, and things are different. And we've been reaching out to realtors and agents and investors that are do a lot of volume, because they're the experts in the marketplace, such as yourself, and can give a lot of insight as to what you're seeing, because that's really going to give the overview to the average individual watching this, rather than maybe somebody doing like 1 or 2 transactions a year. You don't really get that high level view and that feel. You get a good feel from where you sit. So
yeah, absolutely.
So let's start there. So Karl, what are you seeing right now? Interest rates up, buyers shifting, still a hungry market. Talk to us what your business looks like.
Still pretty hungry.
Okay.
It is shifting a little bit. And so my background's, realtor sales. I'm a realtor, mostly like Northeast Philadelphia. I'll go down into parts of the city, and then Bucks County is my kind of 2 markets. Mm-hmm. And investor too. I'm not seeing too much with that. Investors are still, buying a lot. There's big players in the game. Big institutions are buying single families right now. What I'm personally seeing with my buyers that I'm working now, the suburbs are still very tough to land an offer. I mean, there's still all kinds of cash offers out there, over asking 20, 30, 40, 50,000 over asking. Inside the city is a little bit easier. I think a lot of it is just, a lot of people are done with Philadelphia and they want to get out, and that's causing demand in the counties to rise.
Second time we've heard that this week from another
it's true.
Thing.
If you just look at, you take anywhere, like I have a buyer right now looking in like Feasterville, Southampton area, the supply there is so low, and anything that hits the market is gone so quickly.
It's an absolute anomaly I've talked to people even in 2008 and 2007 when I first got in. I didn't have quite the insight that I have now into the marketplace, but I don't know that it was like that, because it's almost like concentrated efforts of demand right now. So it's like the whole country or the whole area says, yeah, there's a lot of demand still, but it's like hyper focused is what people are saying into the, the main line, into the counties and stuff versus the city. But the things are shifting, right? So even though you still have that frenzy in the counties, the next 6 months could look a lot different. I was just talking to Ryan before the show. For the first month, the housing permits have slowed down, and the new construction has slowed down in the actual reports and the national reports. So that's the first sign of a market, shifting, in terms of like when you're not in the market and you're like, watching CNN or something. That's going to put people on notice that the market is officially shifting. So what are your plans coming up? You're going to still obviously ride the wave of the suburbs, but what are your plans beyond that? Any thoughts?
I'm just going to ride, as a realtor, my clients are still looking to buy. Everyone still wants to flee the city and get out of the city. As an investor, I'm definitely slowing down anything short-term that I'm holding. I have 1 flip going to market next week. After that sells, I'm probably not going to do any more flips right now. Just anything that I'm looking to hold for, 10, 15, 20 years. So I'm still going to pick up some rental properties. Nothing short-term right now in the city. In the suburbs, I like to look at what bigger players are doing. And for example, kind of my father-in-law, he's with Toll Brothers, and he was telling me they released plans to build like 600 more homes over the next 24 months in Bucks County. So, Toll Brothers isn't stupid. They have people way smarter than me doing market research. And if they're predicting that much demand, then, I think they are, keep their finger on the pulse a lot better than me.
Sure, better than all. Tolls is huge.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. But let's go back up to your comment about the short term. So do you have investors, flippers doing the same thing? Like flipping investors that are like?
Honestly, no. A lot of my friends that are investors, they're still, one of my friends has 6 active going on now, and he's still buying. And, a lot of my friends that are investors are not slowing down at all.
So I think you're actually, so I mean, in what I do for a living, what me and Ryan do, we would not want to promote the fact that, pausing for a moment for a few months might be a good idea. But I'm going to be honest. I think what you're doing is smart, because we don't know where this is going to land. There's always going to be some sort of market, some sort of demand. We just don't know what that is. And I was literally just talking. So we have another partner in Maryland. His name's Chris. And I was just talking to him before the show. I was just on the phone with him. We were talking. I said, it's hard to do an ARV loan right now, because we don't know what the ARV really is going to be in 6 months. There'll be an ARV. We don't know where it is. Does that mean an ARV of 65 or 70% is really an ARV loan in 6 or 7 months at 80 or 90%?
Yeah. I think there's ways too. I mean, if somebody gave me a great deal or whatever that I'm going to buy in the next couple weeks or months, you just have to have kind of like a contingent exit plan. Hey, if this isn't selling, can I refi and rent it? And that's where, I would not get into any high-end developments or flips right now that wouldn't be able to be rented after that. Anything that I would potentially do, which I'm probably not, I would want to have a contingent kind of exit that if plan A doesn't work, well, then, hey, I can just rent it for a year or two and that's fine.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think, and a lot of deals don't work well, and with both exit strategies on mine. So you got to kind of sit and wait on the right deal. But, where before, in the market for the last 2 or 3 years was anything you buy, you're selling in 6 months because you're getting some crazy number for it,
Yeah.
But I think that's an interesting point. But I guess, it's we were asking the question to people, what are you doing? How are you shifting? But it's I don't know, the good realtors, the good agents, the answer is nobody knows. I don't know. You don't know. Yeah. But what you do know you're going to do is adapt.
Yeah.
So
I was on a podcast last week.
Okay.
More so Canadian audience, but they have some US listeners too. And the guy and I were talking and we were like, look, anybody that has a very confident opinion right now, I would be skeptical, because we're in unprecedented times. We can't base anything right now off of, history. No. So, if someone's going to guarantee, we're not going to crash, I would be skeptical of that. And same, on the other side, someone's going to guarantee we're going to keep appreciating and not crash. I'm skeptical of that too. I'm supposed to be a realtor and a professional. And my answer is, I really don't know what's going to happen. I understand both sides of the, what each side's arguing, and both sides make sense. I think we're going to fall somewhere in the middle. That would be my answer, because I don't want to confidently say, it's coming down, and I'm not going to confidently say it's not.
Yeah. I think I think the only thing you can confidently say is it's changing, as in it's different than it was 6 months ago. And that's the only thing we know. And then where it's going though, it's I do quite a bit of stock charts and so forth. And I was looking at one of the charts, and I was looking at it with Ryan, and I said, if you look at the Dow right now, which I should have an updated chart for you, but we're basically in a territory where we broke a major trend line that leads us into unknown space. Mm-hmm. So, and that holds true not just for that chart, but for the entire market that we're in right now. We don't know where this is going to fall to. It could just be a 20-30% correction, like a normal correction, and just go back up and it was for nothing. Or it could just free fall. I don't know. Yeah. I don't really know.
I like to look at too. I mean, I'm big into, like I already said, look at what the big players are doing. And
sure.
With one of my, businesses that I'm involved in, which is Producers Wealth, it's an infinite banking life insurance firm. But within that sector, we look at all the family offices and what they're doing. Okay. And a lot of the big, family office players in that space, they're all putting more money into insurance that's paying a guarantee, versus the volatility of the stock market right now.
So they're shifting funds out of the market right now?
Oh yeah, a lot. And even, the last 2 years leading up to it was crazy amounts of money pouring into insurance when there were certain certain provisions of the CARES Act that allowed you to withdraw funds from your retirement accounts, penalty-free and tax-free. And, anyone that had, I don't want to call it insider knowledge, but anyone that had somebody on the insurance side kind of saying, hey, here's an option that you could do, there was a lot of money being pulled out of retirement accounts and going into insurance, right? The last 2 years.
Due to the loophole, or due to the
CARES Act. That is gone though. For anyone listening, you can't do that anymore.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That was
that was a quick one up, huh?
Yeah. It was like a 12-month period where you could withdraw without penalty.
Nobody even knew about it then.
It was designed that way.
You had to know somebody who was a part of it.
It's
So
all
I
part of
mean,
the game.
that is 100% insider trading, but whatever. I'm not here to change the system at this point.
No. So okay, so that's I understand where you are. What would you okay, if you had to use your crystal ball a little bit, and I'm not holding you to anything, even though we're having you back on the show in 6 months and we're going to pin you down. But, no,
you said this.
Yeah, you said this. If you had the crystal ball, like, I don't know, throw it out there. It's fun.
Most people probably wouldn't like my crystal ball, but
okay.
My worldview and the masterminds that I'm in, the people I look up to and get mentorship from, it's not looking good. I personally believe we're going into a Great Depression.
Greater than the Great Depression is what you're saying?
Yes.
I think it's on the table. I think it shouldn't be ignored, right? I'm not saying, just what we were saying before, like it may or may not, but it's a possibility. I mean, you just look at what happened when COVID struck, and there was some real fear in a lot of people for, I don't know, a month and a half, and then everyone was just like, never mind, we're fine, market's back, right? So if that rebound doesn't happen, like that's where we sit, right? And everything that I can see, and there's always new data that comes in or just data I'm not aware of, but from what I can see right now is there's nothing that's going to stop a downfall right now.
Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, I hope my crystal ball's false, but that's kind of just, the people that I look up to and the groups that I'm in, that's what everybody's preparing for.
Yeah, I think everything I've seen, the only thing that everybody seems to say, or everybody looks at, you go like, we've used the print ourselves out of trouble. Like we've used that ticket up. It can't be used anymore. So I think everybody's like, well, then what? Like, what do we do? You can't, gold you can't buy gold. Pricing, inflation goes, like, there's a whole lot of like things on the table, multiple things that lead us into a position of like, I'm not sure how, I don't even see a way to turn it. That's the thing I don't see. I don't see a way that go, well, if we did this, we could really pull that off. Like with COVID, you could go, all right, look, like eventually they're going to get a vaccine and then everybody's going to be okay. Like you could see something that would occur. With this, I'm not sure. I think I have my daughter. Hey, my daughter's creeping around.
Hey, Kara, joining the podcast.
She is. There she is. There she is. So that's the first time ever on a camera, or on the internet.
I mean, I think your point was that, into any sort of crash, there's a point where it's like people just have that gut feeling of just like, I don't know what's going to, like that real fear, right? Of like, oh my gosh, what's going to stop this? And then that's when it stops. But there's nothing there that says we're going to get through this, right? Let's just stick together and we can get through this.
Yeah.
But also because it hasn't presented itself yet. Or like, I think people such as yourself, Karl, you're an investor. We work with investors. I think we are the first to see this, right? If you're a consumer just trying to buy a house right now, all you're seeing is that frenzy in Bucks County right now. And you're like, I don't know what these guys are talking about because I can't get a house for the life of me right now.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, you're like, nothing's changed. Everything's still going up. But I think what we're trying to point out is, hey, underneath that, there's a really serious shift happening. And if that foundation goes, everything follows it. So I think that's just what we're pointing out. And maybe the foundation won't go, right? Maybe it'll.
I hope it doesn't. I just I mean, what's the statistic? How much percentage of our money was printed in the last 3 years?
Oh, Ryan, you knew that. That's a good right.
But that was like a year ago. That say if you take the 1900 to or 1913, whenever the Fed started printing money, all the way up till 2020, we doubled it in 1 year.
Yeah.
1 year. So it's probably even more than that. That was a statistic, like an old stat, which I don't think people realize how insane that is. So like inflation hasn't even caught up to what we actually inflated it to, right?
Yeah.
And that's take out politics, right? That started with Trump, right, and ended with Biden. So like they're all part of the same game, right?
I think that we're gonna know for sure if if we lose our status as a world reserve currency, then it's all downhill from there.
So
also on the table that I think people are not really talking about yet.
Well, I think the two things. Mark Weiser pretend.
Oh no, Mark's back.
Mark's
he
back.
knows.
Mark's back. Last time it was the top of the market when Mark showed up. So the one thing I noticed that occurred, so I was just reading this thing that a lot of people, I don't think, so we put sanctions on Russia, or we put sanctions on Russia with the Ukraine thing, right? Like that was like, remember that whole thing? All of a sudden Biden says, I'm putting financial sanctions on Russia. And we were all like, first of all, what is this move? This is crazy. No, I didn't really look into it. I didn't really know what that meant, other than I thought we were just like cutting them off financially. Well, I got a more in-depth explanation as to what that was, which makes it like extra conspiracy theory-esque. But so when you have like a wiring system, are you familiar with what happened there, Karl? Like exactly what they did?
No.
So when you have like a wiring system, you have like the SWIFT number, like when you go out and do a wire to like a bank or something, and that identifies it around the world as like, this is like the transaction. Okay. Well, basically what they did was they removed Russia from the SWIFT transaction possibility, essentially eliminating them from the ability to use any kind of wiring funds. Okay, great. Russia just goes, I don't care. I'm just going to do business. I'm going to make my own SWIFT system with India, with China, and so forth. Well, they did that, and it's working well. Well, the problem with that is then we controlled the SWIFT system. The US dollar was the basis. We decided if you were allowed in the SWIFT system. So essentially what happened was we are no longer controlling the SWIFT system around the world. We've essentially isolated the US dollar from being able to control like the underlying value of sanctions around the world. So we eliminated the value to the rest of the world of the US dollar, which is like, you could start to see like headlines coming up right now in different like news pieces that are saying like, you know, India, the ruble is like going up, and Russia are like doing business together. And it's like, they don't need us anymore. That's the point, is like what happened. So the sanctions took away the underlying value of the dollar. And I don't think the world has recognized it just yet.
No.
And I think that's, you know, when this all happens, there's going to be so many domino pieces that nobody is going to know where to look. Like, it's just going to go like, you know, everybody talks about 2008. They're like, oh, that credit swap thing. It's like, what the hell is a credit swap? Like, nobody even knows what that is. How many pieces had to lead up to a credit swap? Like so the same thing could happen today, and you just kind of roughly point a finger, blame it on Biden, kick him out of office, and get somebody else in, right? But that's how I see this like unfolding. I don't really know. I can't think of a better.
That doesn't solve the issue, though. You're just saying that
still doesn't solve it. It solves nothing. Yeah, it solves absolutely nothing. Yeah. Other than you can't even buy Bitcoin now as like a security. Like that's out the door, right? Where do you put your money now, Karl? What do you do? Like,
I'm big. I'm very bullish on infinite banking, so that's where I keep the majority of cash sitting.
I'm an idiot.
The insurance.
Yeah. So essentially, within there's certain like designed whole life contracts that have a cash value account within that contract, and your cash value account grows. You get a guaranteed interest rate on it, and then you get a dividend on top of that. And then you can, what's cool about it too is you can leverage that to go make purchases on, assets or liabilities, but the full amount never actually comes out of the account. So you're growing and compounding uninterrupted, your entire life. The
principal remains is what you're saying. Correct. Essentially?
Correct. Yeah. So if you have 100,000 in your cash value account and you need to borrow, 50,000 for some gap funding to do a loan with, you guys or something, you could borrow 50,000 from your cash value account, but it never actually comes out. The 100 stays in there, growing and compounding.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's pretty impressive. What's the interest rate on that roughly? Just like range.
So our main carrier that we use, you get 3% guaranteed interest, which this is not the investment. This is the high interest savings account to fund the investment. And then you get a dividend on top of that, anywhere from 1% to 3%. We see on average 4% to 6%, on just that account. But then you can use that to go make a spread. If you invest it into a flip for 30%.
I see. And you have to put, it's cash. It's like 1-to-1 value, or it's like a leveraged value. So if you put $100,000 in, that's your money, or you put 10 in and you get 100.
It's a 1-to-1. It will grow eventually. Like, so say you're putting, 50,000 a year in,
right.
There's going to be a period where they call it cash drag, where you're not dollar for dollar yet. But after that, you'll have your full contributions plus your gain available in cash value to use.
I see. Interesting.
Just the fact that we're having this conversation is showing that people are getting creative on where they're investing.
This has been
right.
This has been 200 plus years. The strategy.
Yeah, but you're doing it, right?
Oh yeah. I've been a practitioner of infinite banking for like 4 years now. That's how I basically used to buy my rentals and flips and stuff. And I didn't, disclosure, I am a licensed insurance agent now too, which I only got my license because it's worked for me. I've seen how powerful it is. That last year, the owner of my firm, he was like, hey, I want to build a team out. You've been successful with infinite banking. Is this something you'd be interested in getting licensed to do? And I was like, yeah, hell yeah, absolutely. It's just right up my alley. So now I work for the firm, doing, designing policies for people, looking at their overall situation and then how to implement it.
So for anyone that's watching this, do you want them reaching out to you, or is that
absolutely? If you do producerswealth.com, you can hit become the bank, and then there's a spot, how did you hear about us? You put Karl in there, and that'll come, directly to me for like a strategy call.
Nice. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds good. I love these calls. Each one. So the interesting thing about when we do these shows with like people like you or like other like successful realtors is like there's always like a cool story. Like you didn't get to where you are, you didn't get to doing like volume and doing because you always have a cool insight or you get into cool stuff. Yeah. So it's always something new. So, but I greatly appreciate you coming on, Karl. We'll do this again in 6 months. We'll see how your crystal ball is shaping up. Hopefully. I have a similar crystal ball to yours, so hopefully both of our crystal ball is not correct.
Correct.
I would love that to be the case, but if it is going to be correct, infinite banking sounds like a good method for people to look at.
Absolutely.
And cool. We'll do this again. I appreciate you being on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah.
All right. Take care.
Yeah.